Did you know that in Filipino dating culture, family approval is a fundamental requirement before most relationships can officially begin? While Western dating prioritizes individual choice, Filipino courtship centers on the family network, evaluating you as a potential partner. If you've been struggling to connect with a Filipino woman or wondering why things move differently, cultural understanding could be your missing piece. Throughout this video, I'll reveal traditional practices that have shaped Filipino dating for generations, helping you navigate this rich cultural landscape with respect and confidence rather than confusion or frustration. The family-centered foundation. What if I told you that when dating a Filipina, you're actually dating her entire family network? This isn't an exaggeration, but a fundamental reality that shapes every aspect of romantic relationships in the Philippines. While Western dating often centers on the individual connection between two people, Filipino dating culture operates on an entirely different premise, one where family forms both the foundation and framework of every relationship. In Western societies, dating typically follows a predictable pattern. Two individuals meet, develop mutual interest, and decide whether to pursue a relationship based primarily on their personal compatibility and attraction. Family members might be introduced later, sometimes months into the relationship, and their approval, while appreciated, rarely determines the relationship's fate. Dating decisions are considered personal choices reflecting individual autonomy. The Filipino approach operates on different principles. From the very first date, family considerations influence decisions in ways that many foreigners find difficult to comprehend. In Filipino culture, relationships form between interconnected family networks rather than just between two individuals. The Filipino family structure expands beyond the nuclear unit. While parents and siblings form the core, the concept of family extends to include grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and close family friends. This extended network functions as a cohesive social unit that provides support, guidance, and opinions on romantic relationships. This family-centered approach is deeply rooted in Filipino values of collectivism and familial responsibility. A relationship is viewed as successful based not only on the couple's happiness, but on how well it integrates with family needs and expectations. This extended network is recognized through language. Filipinos use familial terms for people who aren't blood relatives. Close friends of parents become tito, uncle, or tita, aunt. Older neighbors might be addressed as lolo, grandfather, or lolo, grandmother. Even older strangers are often addressed with respectful familial terms. This linguistic practice reflects a worldview where family connections extend beyond biological relationships, creating a vast support network that influences all aspects of life, especially dating. This scenario illustrates a common friction point. While Maria's boyfriend saw the decision as belonging exclusively to the couple, Maria understood that maintaining family harmony was equally important to her long-term happiness. Disregarding family opinions would cause strain within her support network. Consider Maria, a 26-year-old professional from Manila who had been dating her American boyfriend for 6 months when he proposed a weekend trip to a beach resort. Though excited, she declined because she knew her parents and older brother would disapprove of an overnight trip before marriage. Her boyfriend couldn't understand why, as adults, they needed family approval for their travel plans. The practical implications for foreigners interested in dating Filipinas are significant. Meeting the family will happen much earlier than you're accustomed to, sometimes within weeks of dating. Impressing her parents, siblings, and extended family members is essential. Be prepared for family members to ask direct questions about your intentions, background, and future plans. Take Paolo, whose parents expressed serious reservations about his girlfriend's family background. Despite being deeply in love, Paolo eventually ended the relationship after months of family tension. In Filipino culture, This decision reflects the understanding that lasting happiness rarely exists in opposition to family harmony. Family influence extends to major relationship decisions. Unlike Western dating, where couples typically decide independently whether to become exclusive or get engaged, Filipino families often have direct input into these milestones. Family approval can make or break relationships, regardless of the couple's feelings for each other. Family gatherings are frequent and attendance is expected. Sunday family lunches, birthday celebrations, holiday gatherings, and casual get-togethers form the backbone of social life. The partner who avoids these functions or appears uncomfortable in family settings will face challenges gaining acceptance. Financial matters take on a different dimension in this family-centered context. In many Filipino families, resources are shared more collectively, with successful members helping with expenses for parents, siblings' education, or family emergencies. Foreigners who approach relationships with strict financial separation in mind may struggle to understand this collective approach. Filipino perspectives on romantic love tend to value compatibility with family systems and shared values of intense emotional connection. Relationship decisions balance personal feelings with family considerations, prioritizing long-term harmony over short-term passion. This family-centered approach persists strongly in Filipino dating culture, even among educated, cosmopolitan Filipinos, due to practical realities as much as cultural traditions. In a country where social safety nets are limited, families function as economic support systems, healthcare advocates, childcare providers, and emotional anchors. Relationships that disrupt these support networks can have serious practical consequences beyond mere disapproval. To visualize this dynamic, imagine a relationship not as two individuals connecting, but as two family trees growing together, with branches intertwining at multiple points. Each person brings their entire family network into the relationship, creating a complex system of connections that influence every decision. Understanding this family-centered foundation explains why Filipino dating culture differs so dramatically from Western practices. The involvement of family isn't an outdated practice. It's a core cultural value reflecting a different understanding of how relationships function within society. For Filipinos, relationships create connections that strengthen their most important support network, family. Liga, the art of traditional courtship. These family connections form the environment in which Filipino courtship unfolds, but the actual process itself follows a structure that few Westerners have encountered. Traditional liga isn't simply dating with extra steps. It's a carefully choreographed dance of respect and intention that reveals character in ways that swiping right never could. While dating apps have revolutionized romance globally, in the Philippines, this centuries-old courtship practice continues to thrive alongside modern technology, creating a unique hybrid that preserves cultural values. Liga, pronounced liga, translates roughly to courtship in English, but this single word encompasses a complex social process with unwritten rules and expectations. Unlike Western dating, where physical attraction and chemistry often drive the initial stages, liga begins with clear intentions. A man interested in a woman must first declare his purpose to court her, with potential marriage as the end. This declaration immediately sets a different tone than the casual dating norms prevalent in Western culture. The formal nature of liga becomes apparent from the very beginning. Traditional liga often begins with pagpakilangal, the formal introduction. This typically involves the suitor visiting the woman's home to introduce himself to her parents or guardians. These initial meetings happen in the family living room, often with parents present or nearby, creating a supervised environment that emphasizes respect and proper conduct. What follows is a period of panliligaw, the active courtship phase, which can last anywhere from several months to years. During this time, the suitor demonstrates his sincerity through consistent actions, regular visits to the woman's home, bringing small gifts for the family, show commitment and respect for the entire household. These visits create opportunities for both families to observe and evaluate the potential partner in various situations. The deliberate pacing of ligaw serves multiple purposes beyond tradition. Anna, a 29-year-old teacher from Cebu, shares, "My husband spent 8 months coming to our house every weekend before I agreed to be his girlfriend. My father appreciated his patience and saw how he treated everyone in our family with respect. This showed me he was interested in building something meaningful." This extended courtship period allows for deeper conversations and meaningful interactions that build genuine connection. Ligaw prioritizes building friendship and mutual understanding first. Conversations focus on values, life goals, and family backgrounds rather than surface-level compatibility. Family involvement throughout the ligaw process creates accountability and provides valuable insights into character. As the Filipino saying goes, "Kung paano makitungo sa pamilya, ganon din makitungo sa asawa." How one treats family is how one will treat a spouse. Family gatherings, celebrations, and ordinary meals provide opportunities to observe how a potential partner navigates family dynamics, handles conflicts, and demonstrates respect to elders. For many Filipinas, this extended family involvement provides a crucial safety net. Elders with life experience can identify red flags or concerning behaviors that young love might overlook. This multi-layered evaluation process has served as a protection mechanism long before background checks existed. The progression of ligaw follows distinct milestones, signaling increasing levels of commitment. After the initial introduction and regular visits establish mutual interest, the couple may advance to pag-saluhan, shared activities with family members present. These might include attending church together, joining family outings, or participating in community events. Such public appearances signal to the community that a formal courtship is underway. Only after consistent demonstration of sincerity and earning family approval does the relationship progress to pagiging magkasintahan, becoming an official couple. Even then, physical intimacy remains limited, with modest public displays of affection out of respect for traditional values. This gradual progression builds anticipation and emotional connection without the complications physical intimacy can bring to relationship clarity. While ancient in origin, ligaw thrives in contemporary Filipino society through thoughtful adaptation. Ramon, a software developer from Manila, explains, "I met my fiancée through a dating app, but once we connected, I still followed ligaw traditions. I visited her family home regularly, brought gifts, and took time to know her parents. Our relationship built slowly, but on a strong foundation." Young professionals and college students practice modified versions of these traditions while incorporating modern communication tools. Dating apps might facilitate initial meetings, but many Filipinos still follow the ligaw structure once interest is established. Video calls may substitute for some in-person visits when distance is a factor, but demonstrating commitment through consistent action remains essential. For foreigners dating Filipinas, understanding ligaw traditions can make the difference between success and failure. Carlos, an American who married a woman from Manila, shares, "I initially thought the family visits were excessive, but I came to appreciate how this process allowed us to build a solid foundation. Her family's observations helped me understand aspects of her character I might have missed." Navigating ligaw successfully as a foreigner requires patience and cultural sensitivity. The timeline may feel slow compared to Western dating norms, but rushing signals disrespect demonstrating genuine interest in Filipino traditions. Learning basic Tagalog phrases and showing consistent respect to family members all contribute to successful cross-cultural courtship. The beauty of ligaw lies in how it reveals character through time and consistent action. In contrast to dating cultures that prioritize instant attraction, ligaw provides a framework for evaluating long-term compatibility, patience, respectfulness, and family values. Qualities essential for lasting relationships are naturally tested throughout the courtship process. The deliberate nature of ligaw offers significant advantages in relationship development. By slowing the progression, couples evaluate compatibility beyond initial attraction. The emphasis on family integration from the beginning helps avoid the shock when partners finally meet each other's families. The clear intention toward potential marriage helps prevent misunderstandings about relationship. Harana. Serenading as an expression of love. Beyond the familial approval and structured courtship of ligaw lies a romantic Filipino tradition that transforms courtship into an art form. Harana. The practice of musical serenading asks something of suitors that dating apps could never replicate. The willingness to be vulnerable enough to sing your feelings directly to the object of your affection, often under the watchful eyes of her family. Picture this scene that has played out countless times across Philippine history. The quiet of evening settles over a rural neighborhood. A young man arrives with friends who serve as his backup musicians and moral support. Guitar in hand, he positions himself beneath the window of a young woman's home. The silver moonlight bathes his nervous figure as crickets provide nature's percussion. With a deep breath, he begins to strum and sing romantic folk songs, his voice carrying through the night air like a silken thread weaving through the darkness. Inside, the young woman listens, perhaps peering through curtains, her heart quickening with each note, while her parents decide whether to invite the suitor in or send him away. Harana emerged during the Spanish colonial period, blending European musical traditions with native Filipino sensibilities to create a distinctly Filipino practice with its own protocols and cultural significance. This tradition flourished particularly in rural areas during the late 19th and early 20th centuries, becoming a cornerstone of Filipino courtship culture. The traditional Harana follows a specific four-part structure. It begins with the Pamamanhikan opening, where the harnista announces his presence through song and requests permission to serenade. Amawaya, O Light, often serves as this opening call, with lyrics that compare the beloved to a guiding light. If the woman's parents approve, they illuminate a lamp or open the window, signaling the second phase, Pagtatapa. Declaration can begin. During this phase, the suitor expresses his feelings through carefully chosen love songs like Dunga Winmo Hirang, Look Out Your Window, Beloved, directly addressing his intentions. The third part, Pagpatiklag, Romantic Persuasion, features more passionate tunes designed to stir emotions, such as Ika ang Mahal Ko, You Are My Love, where metaphors of devotion deepen. Finally, the Despedida, Farewell, concludes the performance with gratitude and a promise to return, often using songs like Paalam Na, Goodbye for Now, to respectfully close the evening. What makes Harana particularly noteworthy is its public nature. Unlike private texts or direct messages that characterize modern courtship, Harana requires performing one's romantic intentions in front of an audience, typically the woman's family and neighbors. This public declaration demonstrates the suitor's serious intentions, his willingness to risk embarrassment, and his respect for traditional protocols by acknowledging the family's role in the courtship process. When my grandfather courted my grandmother in the 1950s in Bulacan province, he had to learn to play guitar specifically for Harana, shares Professor Florante Santos of the University of the Philippines Music Department. He wasn't naturally musical, but spent months practicing because it was about showing dedication and effort. My grandmother's father wouldn't have taken him seriously otherwise. The songs themselves carry cultural significance beyond their romantic lyrics. Traditional Harana songs have become deeply embedded in Filipino cultural memory. These songs, often performed in local dialects, contain poetic metaphors about devotion, patience, and undying love that reflect Filipino values regarding relationships. While the practice of Harana declined significantly with urbanization and technological advances in the late 20th century, it has evolved and adapted to contemporary settings in fascinating ways. In 2012, a documentary film titled Harana, The Search for the Lost Art of Serenade helped spark renewed interest in the tradition. Director Benito Bautista followed classical guitarist Florente Aguilar as he returned to the Philippines to document the last remaining traditional Haranistas, connecting younger generations to this aspect of their cultural heritage. Modern adaptations have emerged in urban areas. Ryan Cabiab, one of the Philippines' most prominent composers, notes, "Today's young Filipinos might not perform traditional Harana, but they've transferred its spirit to new contexts. I've witnessed college students organize modern Harana events where they perform contemporary songs beneath dormitory windows. The instruments and songs have changed, but the public declaration of feelings remains." Some entrepreneurial Filipinos have created Harana services where professional musicians can be hired to serenade someone on behalf of a shy suitor. These services are particularly popular around Valentine's Day in major cities like Manila and Cebu. For foreigners dating Filipinas, understanding Harana provides insight into Filipino romantic sensibilities even if they never personally perform one. The tradition emphasizes qualities highly valued in Filipino relationships: creativity in expressing affection, willingness to make oneself vulnerable, respect for family involvement, and the patience to court properly rather than rushing intimacy. One such example comes from James, an Australian who proposed to his Filipina girlfriend by organizing a surprise musical performance at her family gathering. I couldn't play guitar, but I learned a traditional Harana song and had her cousin accompany me while I sang to her in front of her entire extended family. Her grandmother, who grew up during Harana's heyday, was moved to tears. It connected me to their family traditions in a way nothing else could have. Cultural researcher Maria Cristina Barbon offers this perspective. While most Filipinas wouldn't expect foreign partners to perform traditional Harana, acknowledging and appreciating this cultural tradition can go a long way. Some Westerners have successfully incorporated elements of Harana into their relationships, finding creative, public ways to express their feelings that honor the spirit of the tradition. What makes Harana continue to resonate in the Filipino psyche is how it embodies core values that remain important in relationships. The vulnerability required to sing publicly demonstrates emotional courage. The ritualized nature of seeking permission shows respect for family boundaries. The investment of time in learning songs and practicing music proves dedication beyond mere physical attraction. These qualities remain desirable in partners regardless of whether the specific practice continues. Pamanhikan, the formal family meeting. Pamanhikan derives from the Tagalog word panik, meaning to go up, symbolizing the groom's family's visit to the bride's home. Historically, this tradition served as the formal marriage proposal, where the man's parents would ask the woman's parents for their daughter's hand in marriage. Today, while couples typically decide to marry before Pamanhikan occurs, this gathering remains a vital cultural practice that demonstrates respect for parental authority and family traditions. If you think meeting her parents for dinner is nerve-wracking, you haven't experienced the formal Filipino family summit that awaits before any marriage plans can proceed. Pamanhikan, pronounced Pamanhikan, represents a critical threshold in Filipino relationships, a formal gathering where two families come together to officially discuss and essentially negotiate the couple's marriage plans. This centuries-old tradition has no Western equivalent, yet it remains a crucial cultural milestone that many foreigners never anticipate when dating a Filipina. The timing of Pamanhikan is significant. It typically occurs after the couple has already decided to marry, but before any formal wedding arrangements begin. Anthropologist Dr. Elena Santos from the University of the Philippines explains, Pamanhikan represents the ceremonial merging of two family systems and establishes the foundation for future family relations. Even in modern Filipino society, bypassing this tradition can create lingering tensions between families. For foreigners, the formality of this gathering often comes as a surprise. Mark, a Canadian who married a woman from Batangas, recalls his experience. "I thought it would be similar to meeting her parents for dinner, just with a formal announcement of our engagement. Instead, I found myself in a structured family conference with her extended family, uncles, aunts, grandparents, all discussing aspects of our relationship I considered private. It was intimidating, but ultimately meaningful." The Pamanhikan gathering follows distinct protocols that vary by region and family customs, but certain elements remain consistent. The event typically begins with the groom's family arriving at the bride's family home, bearing gifts, often including food, wine, and sometimes symbolic items. In some regions, particularly in rural areas, these gifts might include symbols of prosperity like rice, fruits, or even livestock for particularly traditional families. Once everyone is gathered, the most senior male relative from the groom's family, often his father or uncle, formally expresses their intention to ask for the bride's hand in marriage. This statement initiates a structured conversation about the couple's future. The bride's parents then respond, sometimes after conferring with other family elders present. What surprises many foreigners is the directness with which practical matters are discussed during Pamanhikan. Unlike Western engagement announcements that focus on celebrating the couple's love, Pamanhikan centers on establishing the feasibility and foundations of the marriage. Financial situations are openly evaluated, including discussions of each partner's earning capacity, existing assets and debts, and financial responsibilities. Cultural anthropologist Maria Gonzalez explains that these conversations determine if the couple has the necessary resources and support to establish a successful household. For Filipinos, marriage represents the union of two support systems, not just two individuals. Living arrangements frequently become a central topic during Pamanhikan. Whether the couple will live independently with the bride's family or with the groom's family carries significant implications in Filipino culture. These discussions might include details about housing plans, proximity to extended family, and expectations regarding family visits. For foreigners navigating cross-cultural Pamanhikan, these discussions can feel uncomfortably direct. Robert, an American married to a woman from Cebu, shared, "The questions about my income, savings, and future earning potential felt invasive by American standards. It took me time to understand this wasn't about judging my worth, but about ensuring their daughter would be secure in our marriage." The wedding plans themselves receive considerable attention. Decisions about the ceremony type, guest list size, budget responsibilities, and timeline are all negotiated with input from both families. In traditional settings, the groom's family might offer to shoulder specific expenses as part of their formal proposal. Successfully navigating Pamanhikan requires preparation and cultural sensitivity. Couples should discuss expectations thoroughly before the gathering. Foreigners benefit from learning about specific regional or family traditions that might shape the event. Being prepared to answer questions about financial stability, career plans, and family background helps demonstrate seriousness about the relationship. Language barriers often complicate matters, especially when elder family members speak primarily Filipino languages. Jorge, who married into a family from northern Luzon, explained, "My future father-in-law spoke limited English and I didn't speak Ilocano. We relied heavily on my fiancé to translate, which created awkward moments when discussing sensitive topics like finances." Cross-cultural Pamanhikan presents unique challenges. Cultural differences in communication styles can lead to misunderstandings, where Filipino families might approach disagreements indirectly to preserve harmony, Western partners and their families might express concerns more directly, potentially causing tension. Some families have modernized aspects of Pamanhikan while preserving its core purpose. Urban professional couples might hold the gathering at a restaurant rather than the family home. Multicultural families sometimes incorporate elements from both cultural backgrounds, creating blended ceremonies that honor diverse traditions. For foreigners in relationships with Filipinas, understanding and respecting Pamanhikan demonstrates cultural awareness and commitment. In an age where technology has transformed many aspects of dating and relationships, this tradition stands as a reminder that in Filipino culture, marriage remains a deeply personal connection enhanced by family bonds, rather than diminished by them. The digital age might change how couples meet, but the human connections formalized in Pamanhikan continue to shape the foundation of cross-cultural marriages. Despite these adaptations, the fundamental purpose of Pamanhikan endures: to formalize the relationship between families and establish the foundation for the marriage. Dr. Santos notes, even among highly educated, cosmopolitan Filipinos, some form of Pamanhikan often takes place. The details may change, but the need to honor family connections remains deeply embedded in Filipino cultural identity. Technology's impact on Filipino dating. These enduring family traditions might make you wonder if dating in the Philippines has remained untouched by modernization, but that assumption couldn't be further from reality. In a country with more Facebook users per capita than almost anywhere else on Earth, technology hasn't replaced Filipino dating traditions. It's created something far more intricate, with over 76 million social media users in a population of 110 million. The Philippines consistently ranks among the world's top users of social platforms, earning its nickname as the social media capital of the world. This digital saturation has fundamentally altered how relationships begin, develop, and maintain themselves without eliminating the cultural foundations we've explored. The Philippines presents a fascinating case study in how technology adoption preserves cultural identity. Filipinos spend an average of 10 hours online daily, the highest in Southeast Asia. Yet than abandoning traditions like ligaw or Pamanhikan, they've adapted digital tools to complement these practices, creating what sociologists call technological hybridity. The integration of new technologies into existing cultural frameworks. This integration appears clearly in how dating apps function within Filipino society. While Tinder dominates Western markets with casual connections, Filipino-developed platforms like Filipino Cupid and Christian Filipina have gained substantial traction by explicitly catering to relationship-minded singles. These platforms emphasize compatibility factors that align with Filipino values, family orientation, religious beliefs, and long-term intentions, over proximity or immediate attraction. What we're seeing is technology adapting to support tradition, explains Dr. Maria Concepcion Santos of the University of the Philippines Department of Sociology. Young Filipinos maintain the core values of respect, family involvement, and commitment. They're simply initiating these processes through digital channels first. Facebook's role in Filipino dating culture stands out particularly. Unlike Western contexts where dedicated dating apps separate romantic pursuits from general social networking, Filipinos often use Facebook as their primary dating platform. The mutual friends feature aligns perfectly with the Filipino preference for vetted introductions and social connections. Take Jamie, a 24-year-old marketing professional from Manila who received a friend request from Paolo. Before accepting, she immediately checked their mutual connections. I saw we had 5 friends in common, including my cousin. I messaged her first to ask about him, she explains. 3 months later, after countless video calls and group meetups organized through Messenger, Paolo formally introduced himself to Jamie's parents, a digital beginning that honored the traditional family screening process. These digital courtships follow familiar patterns while adding modern convenience. After initial online connections, Relationships typically transition to the physical world through group settings, often organized through Facebook events or messenger group chats. This gradual progression from online interaction to family introduction maintains the spirit of traditional courtship while accelerating the initial connection phase. As anthropologist Fernando Nakpil observes, technology has compressed and rearranged the stages of Filipino courtship, but the essential elements remain. Video calls have become crucial in managing relationships across the archipelago's islands and with overseas partners. For Maricel, whose boyfriend works in Singapore, nightly video calls include virtual family dinners where both families participate from different locations. My parents join our calls every Sunday. They want to see how he's doing and feel connected to him, even from a distance, she says, demonstrating how technology enables family involvement across geographical barriers. The phenomenon of digital pagsio, digital wooing, represents a modern adaptation of traditional courtship. Instead of bringing physical gifts to a woman's home, suitors might send food delivery to her workplace, share carefully curated Spotify playlists, or create digital photo albums documenting meaningful moments. These gestures maintain the thoughtfulness associated with traditional courtship while adapting to urban lifestyles. For foreigners dating Filipinas, understanding these technological adaptations is essential. The casual dating approach, common on Western apps, often creates misalignments with Filipino expectations. When Michael, an American teacher working in Manila, matched with several Filipinos on dating apps, he was surprised by how quickly conversations moved toward discussing family backgrounds and future plans. In the US, these would be third or fourth date conversations. Here they happened before we even met in person, he recalls. Similarly, social media plays a uniquely significant role in relationship progression. Changing one's Facebook relationship status represents a serious commitment milestone, often occurring only after family introductions. For foreigners unaware of this significance, casually suggesting a relationship status change can send unintended signals about commitment level. The digital transformation of dating brings challenges too. The ghosting phenomenon, abruptly cutting off communication, creates particular tensions in a culture that values direct communication and proper closure. Organizations like the Philippine Commission on Women have noted increased reports of unwanted digital advances as technology removes some traditional social protections. Furthermore, the digital divide between urban and rural areas creates disparities in how Filipinos access these new dating channels. While most Metro Manila residents have regular internet access, this figure drops significantly in remote provinces. This technological gap means that traditional courtship practices remain dominant in rural areas, creating regional variations in dating expectations. John, a British expat living in Cebu, encountered this blend of digital and traditional when his Filipina girlfriend expected him to send formal Facebook messages to her father before their first official date. I thought suggesting we meet for coffee was casual, but for her, accepting that invitation was a significant step that required family notification, he explains. Research shows that young urban professionals are increasingly comfortable with concepts like exclusively dating before formal family introductions. The middle ground between Western casual dating and traditional Filipino courtship. Dating apps have also created more opportunities for LGBTQ Filipinos to connect in a predominantly Catholic society. For foreigners navigating this hybrid dating landscape, success requires cultural sensitivity coupled with technological awareness. Understanding that digital communication integrates into family approval processes rather than replacing them is crucial for building meaningful relationships in the Philippines' unique cultural context. Core values, respect, and boundaries. Cultural sensitivity matters in digital courtship, but what if the most crucial element has nothing to do with technology at all? In a culture where even the most casual interactions follow unspoken rules of social hierarchy, misunderstanding one core value can sabotage your relationship with a Filipina before it even begins, regardless of how many mutual Facebook friends you share. That core value is respect, Galangian Filipino, and it fundamentally differs from Western concepts of respect. While many foreigners view respect primarily as treating someone as an equal, Filipino culture frames respect within a complex system of social hierarchies and collective harmony. In Filipino culture, respect recognizes your place within an intricate social structure and requires acting accordingly, explains Dr. Antonio Contreras of De La Salle University in Manila. This subtle difference creates countless opportunities for unintentional offense when foreigners interact with Filipinas and their families. Filipino respect operates like an intricate dance, where each participant must follow specific steps. The choreography includes verbal cues, physical gestures, and timing, all synchronized to maintain harmony. Just as a wrong step disrupts a performance, misunderstanding respect disrupts relationships. The dance begins with honorifics and body language. Filipinos use terms like po and opo as verbal markers of respect when addressing elders. Family members receive titles like tito, uncle, or tita, aunt, even when not blood relatives. The traditional mano po gesture, touching an elder's hand briefly to your forehead, demonstrates profound respect when meeting a Filipina's family members. Attempting these practices shows cultural sensitivity that Filipino families deeply appreciate. Digital communication follows similar protocols. Messages typically include formal greetings and courteous inquiries about family before addressing personal matters. Abrupt communication styles that skip these formalities often register as disrespectful, regardless of content. Anthropologist Cheryl Ruth Soriano notes, many foreigners misinterpret Filipino politeness as agreement when often it's conflict avoidance out of respect. Western partners believe they've reached consensus when their Filipino partner is actually uncomfortable but unwilling to directly say so. This indirect communication stems from haya, a complex sense of propriety and face-saving that shapes interactions. Direct disagreement is avoided to preserve harmony and others' feelings. For those accustomed to straightforward communication, this indirectness can be frustrating. Mark, an Australian businessman, experienced a transformative moment in his relationship with his Cebuana girlfriend after a family dinner. I kept pushing my opinions about politics, thinking I was contributing to the conversation, he recalls. Everyone grew quieter, but I didn't realize what was happening. Later, my girlfriend explained I had dominated the conversation without allowing her grandfather, the family elder, to share his wisdom first. It clicked then that respect wasn't about what I said, but when and how I said it. Learning to listen before speaking completely transformed how her family viewed me. Personal boundaries also reflect different respect norms. Physical intimacy progresses slowly, with conservative boundaries around physical contact, especially in public. While Western dating often involves early physical affection, Filipino culture views restraint as demonstrating respect and serious intentions. My British boyfriend couldn't understand why I wouldn't hold hands in my hometown, shares Diana, a nurse from Batangas. For him, it was natural. For me, it would signal to my community that our relationship had progressed further than it had, potentially damaging my family's reputation. This community perception concern extends to online behavior. Many Filipinos maintain conservative social media presences and expect partners to respect these boundaries by avoiding overtly romantic comments or intimate photos that family members might see. Time boundaries reflect respect differently too. While Western culture values punctuality, Filipino culture often operates on Filipino time, a more flexible approach to scheduling. However, as cultural psychologist Dr. Elizabeth Protasia de Castro explains, being late to casual gatherings might be acceptable, but keeping elders waiting shows disrespect. The rules are contextual rather than universal. Financial aspects of respect surprise many foreigners. Filipino culture views a partner's willingness to assist family members financially as demonstrating respect and commitment. This doesn't mean all Filipinos expect financial support, but rather that generosity toward family demonstrates respect for Filipino values. The concept of pakikisama, harmonious relationships, further enriches the respect dance. This value requires maintaining smooth interpersonal relationships by accommodating others' needs. For foreigners, this might mean participating in family activities they find tedious or accepting unsolicited advice, all as demonstrations of respect for collective preferences. Relationship counselor Maria Lourdes Santos observes, the foreigners who struggle most are those who intellectually understand Filipino respect but emotionally resist it. They view these practices as unnecessary formalities rather than meaningful expressions of cultural values. This resistance often stems from misinterpreting respect requirements as submission. However, Filipino relationships aren't fundamentally hierarchical between partners. They simply operate within a broader social framework where respect flows in multiple directions to maintain community harmony. For those navigating cross-cultural relationships with Filipinas, successful adaptation requires both understanding and genuine appreciation of these differences. Learn basic Filipino honorifics and greetings, practice addressing elders appropriately, and demonstrate willingness to participate in family traditions. Approach unfamiliar customs with curiosity rather than judgment, recognizing that respect systems develop in response to specific cultural context. Remember that respect extends to religious practices as well. With over 80% of Filipinos identifying as Catholic, religious observances often feature prominently in family life. Respectful participation demonstrates sensitivity to deeply held values, long-term commitment, and marriage. Religious values don't just shape family gatherings. They've created one of the most striking legal anomalies in modern relationship culture. In a world where even the most conservative societies have embraced divorce laws, the Philippines stands virtually alone in maintaining its absolute prohibition, forcing us to ask, what happens when till death do us part isn't just a vow, but the only legally possible outcome? The Philippines and Vatican City remain the only two sovereign states in the world where divorce is completely illegal. While legal separation exists as an option, it doesn't dissolve the marriage bond, meaning neither party can remarry. The only exceptions are marriages involving Muslims who are governed by Islamic personal laws that permit divorce, and the extremely limited option of annulment, a costly, time-consuming process requiring proof that the marriage was invalid from the beginning due to psychological incapacity or fraud. This legal framework fundamentally shapes how Filipinos approach relationships. When entering a serious relationship in the Philippines, both parties understand they are potentially making a decision, legally speaking, can't be undone. This creates a dramatically different dating psychology compared to Western contexts, where relationships often carry the underlying assumption that legal dissolution is always an option. Dr. Maria Lourdes Garcia Santos, a family sociologist at Ateneo de Manila University, explains, from adolescence, Filipinos are socialized to view marriage as a permanent, lifelong commitment. This is embedded in our legal system, educational institutions, and family structures. Dating is seen as a genuine pathway to finding a life partner. This perspective creates a stark contrast with Western dating cultures that emphasize short-term compatibility and individual fulfillment. Dating apps and casual relationships have normalized the concept of trying out multiple partners before settling down. The rise of situationships in Western contexts creates fundamental misalignments when these cultures intersect with Filipino dating norms. Consider the experience of Michael, an American expatriate working in Manila. When I first started dating here, I was surprised by how quickly conversations turned to long-term compatibility. On our third date, Anna was asking about my views on having children and elder care. I later realized she wasn't being clingy. She was being practical about not wasting time with someone whose life goals might be incompatible with hers. This commitment-focused mindset shapes dating behaviors from the earliest stages. Many Filipinos employ a careful vetting process when considering potential partners. Filipino dating often includes early consideration of values alignment, family compatibility, and long-term potential. A prudent approach in a culture where marriage is understood as truly permanent. While Western couples might move in together to test their compatibility, cohabitation before marriage remains relatively uncommon in the Philippines, particularly outside major urban centers. Instead, the courtship process focuses on getting to know each other's character, values, and how each person handles challenges, qualities essential for a lifetime commitment. The concepts of pagbatis, endurance, and globe, strength of will, feature prominently in Filipino marriage narratives. These cultural values emphasize perseverance through difficulties rather than seeking exits from challenging relationships. Marriage isn't viewed as about perpetual happiness, but about growing together through inevitable hardships. Father Roberto Sanchez, who has conducted pre-marriage counseling for over 20 years at a parish in Quezon City, notes, "Marriage isn't just about romantic love, it's a covenant between families. The vow for better or worse isn't taken lightly here. Our cultural understanding is that marriage requires sacrifice and perseverance. This commitment-oriented mindset extends beyond legal frameworks into practical relationship dynamics. Many Filipino families operate on the principle of utang na loob, debt of gratitude, within marriage. The understanding that spouses assume lifelong obligations to each other and each other's families. This creates relationship bonds strengthened by reciprocal responsibility rather than maintained solely by romantic feelings. For foreigners seeking relationships with Filipinas, understanding this commitment framework is crucial. What might seem like moving too fast from a Western perspective often stems from a pragmatic approach to finding a suitable life partner. Discussions about future plans, meeting family early, or expectations of exclusivity reflect the purposeful nature of dating in Filipino culture. When relationships face challenges, Filipino culture values perseverance over individual happiness. This manifests in a greater willingness to seek counseling, involve family mediators, or accept that relationships experience difficult seasons without immediately considering separation. Sophia, a relationship counselor specializing in cross-cultural couples in Cebu, explains, "I often see misunderstandings arise when foreign men interpret a Filipina's focus on long-term compatibility as being desperate to marry. In reality, she's simply operating within a cultural framework where dating is purposeful rather than recreational." The question for foreigners becomes whether they're prepared for a relationship model emphasizing permanence, family integration, and working through difficulties. This requires honest self-reflection about one's capacity for commitment in a culture where till death do us part is a legal reality. This doesn't mean all Filipinos expect marriage after a few dates, or that modern dating practices haven't evolved, particularly in urban centers. Younger generations navigate a complex balance between traditional values and contemporary influences, though the cultural framework regarding marriage's permanence continues to influence relationship expectations. For successful cross-cultural relationships, recognizing these differences requires honest communication regarding expectations and values. Rather than assuming shared understandings of what dating means, explicit conversations about expectations become essential. This isn't unromantic, it's respectful of cultural differences and helps prevent painful misunderstandings as relationships progress toward potential lifelong commitment. Beyond just talking about differences lies the challenging reality of living them daily. In cross-cultural relationships with Filipinos, even the most basic interactions can become cultural minefields, where a simple yes might actually mean no, and what's left unsaid often matters more than what's spoken aloud. Navigating cross-cultural relationships. The growing number of international relationships between Filipinos and Western partners has revealed fascinating patterns of both harmony and discord. Cultural anthropologist Estela Molino from the University of Santo Tomas explains that these relationships operate at the intersection of two distinct worldviews. Western cultures prioritize direct communication and individual autonomy, while Filipino culture emphasizes harmony, indirect communication, and collective decision-making. These fundamental differences create a relationship terrain that must be carefully navigated. Time perception represents one of the most immediate friction points. The Philippines operates on polychronic time, a fluid approach where relationships take precedence over rigid schedules. Western monochronic time cultures value punctuality above. Richard, a British executive married to a Filipina for 8 years, recalls, "During our first year together, I nearly ended things over what I saw as chronic lateness. My wife would say she'd be ready in 30 minutes, but 2 hours later, we'd still be at home. I interpreted it as disrespect, while she couldn't understand why I was so obsessed with the clock. It took months to recognize this wasn't about consideration. It was about different cultural programming around time." Communication styles present another major challenge. Filipino women often employ high-context communication where meaning is conveyed through subtle cues and non-verbal signals. This contrasts with the low-context, direct communication style preferred in many Western cultures. Molino observes, many Westerners misinterpret Filipino indirectness as dishonesty, while Filipinas may perceive Western directness as rudeness. The concept of pakikisama, getting along harmoniously, leads Filipinas to avoid direct disagreement, using subtle signals of displeasure that Western partners often miss. Meanwhile, pahiwatig, giving hints, operates on the assumption that someone who cares should understand what you need without explicit statements. Decision-making processes and financial management represent interconnected adjustment areas. While Westerners often make personal decisions independently, Filipino culture approaches important choices as family matters. This extends to career changes, large purchases, and even daily schedules. Michael, an American software developer married to a woman from Davao, shares, "For the first year I couldn't understand why my wife would say she was fine when she clearly wasn't. I learned that asking, 'Are you okay?' once wasn't enough in her culture. I was supposed to ask multiple times to show genuine care. What I saw as accepting her word, she interpreted as indifference." Western notions of financial independence frequently clash with Filipino expectations of family resource sharing. James Rodriguez of the Cross-Cultural Relationship Institute notes, many Western partners struggle to understand why their Filipino partners feel obligated to contribute financially to extended family needs, viewing it as exploitation rather than natural family solidarity. Successful couples develop cultural bridging strategies to navigate these differences. Thomas and Maria created a system of 3 accounts: household expenses, family support, and personal spending. This honors her need to fulfill family obligations while respecting my boundaries with shared finances. Thomas explains, "We didn't reach this solution overnight. After months of tension, we sat down with a financial planner who helped us see we were both right in our own cultural contexts." Parenting philosophies become particularly contentious. Filipino parenting emphasizes interdependence and respect for authority, while many Western approaches prioritize independence and questioning authority. These differences intensify when children reach adolescence. Elena and Robert faced this challenge when their teenage daughter wanted to attend an overnight party. My Filipino instinct was absolute refusal, Elena shares. Robert saw it as normal social development. Our compromise was allowing her to go, but with clear check-in times and meeting the parents first. We each gave a little, protecting her while respecting her growing independence. Language differences add another layer of complexity. Even when both partners speak English, cultural idioms and emotional expression can differ dramatically. Sarah, an English teacher from Brighton, married to a Filipino engineer, notes, "I didn't realize how British my English was until my husband would stare blankly at expressions I thought were universal. We started keeping a shared document of phrases that confused each other." Cultural psychologist Dr. Ana Santos suggests that cross-cultural parents must explicitly discuss their parenting philosophies. The most successful families identify the values they want to preserve from each culture and develop consistent approaches that honor both heritages. Holiday celebrations often become flashpoints as they embody deep cultural values. Filipino holidays like Undas involve extensive family cemetery visits that may seem unfamiliar to Western partners. Western holiday expectations like private Christmas mornings may clash with the large, extended family Filipino Christmas celebrations. Elizabeth and Ramon approach these differences as opportunities for cultural exchange. "We created our own holiday tradition," Elizabeth explains. "We have a private Christmas morning exchange, then host a large Filipino-style celebration late for Undas. We visit the cemetery, but also incorporate elements of Halloween for our children." Perhaps the most profound adjustment involves shifting identity as each partner absorbs elements of their partner's culture. Psychologists call this cultural frame switching, adapting behavior based on cultural context. Jennifer, an Australian married to a Filipino for 9 years, reflects, "I've become more collective in my thinking, more indirect in my communication. My husband has become more comfortable with direct feedback. We've each expanded who we are, debunking misconceptions and stereotypes." As cultural frame switching enables growth in relationships, we must confront a troubling reality. The internet is saturated with harmful stereotypes about Filipino women that distort genuine understanding before connections even begin. These stereotypes create barriers that prevent authentic relationships from forming. Online searches for dating Filipino women reveal a disturbing pattern across forums, blogs, and dating sites that reduce complex individuals to simplistic caricatures. Maricel Santos, a cultural anthropologist from the University of San Carlos in Cebu, observes, "These stereotypes create expectations that no real person can fulfill, setting both parties up for disappointment and resentment." The harmful stereotypes most commonly perpetuated include portraying Filipinas as submissive and subservient, economically motivated in seeking foreign partners, and universally desiring traditional housewife roles. These misconceptions not only misrepresent Filipino cultural values, but actively cause harm to women and create obstacles for genuine connections. Research by the Philippine Women's Commission reveals relationships founded on stereotypes rather than authentic understanding have higher failure rates and often create power imbalances, leaving women vulnerable. Their comprehensive study of cross-cultural relationships demonstrates how these expectations can lead to exploitation when left unexamined. Catherine Reyes, an attorney from Quezon City, shares her lived experience. "It's exhausting to always be explaining that I'm not some character from a fetishized fantasy. When foreign men learn I'm Filipino, I can sometimes see their perception of me change instantly. Suddenly they're testing whether I fit their stereotype rather than getting to know me as an individual. The perception of Filipino women as submissive stems from misunderstanding Filipino cultural values around harmony and respect. Isabella Cruz, president of the Filipino Women's Rights Coalition, clarifies the idea that Filipino women are submissive completely misses how power actually works in our culture. Filipino women have traditionally controlled household finances, made critical family decisions, and exercised significant influence in both private and public spheres. What foreigners might interpret as submissiveness is actually pagpapahalaga, a cultural value of showing consideration and care for others. This misconception becomes particularly dangerous when it attracts men seeking unbalanced power dynamics. Dr. Santos notes, "We see men who are drawn to the Philippines because they believe they'll find women who won't challenge them. They're often shocked to discover that Filipino women have strong opinions, boundaries, and expectations." The stereotype portraying Filipinas as primarily motivated by economic factors in international relationships dismisses their agency and complex motivations. Economic development researcher Romain Fernand III explains, "While economic considerations are relevant in any relationship, research shows that Filipinas in cross-cultural relationships prioritize compatibility, trustworthiness, and commitment above financial status." Interviews with successful Filipino foreign marriages consistently reveal that shared values, mutual respect, and compatible life goals predict relationship success rather than economic factors. Diana Mendoza, a software engineer from Manila, married to a Canadian, confronts the traditional housewife stereotype with her reality. "When I first met my husband's friends, they seemed shocked that I had a master's degree and worked in tech. One actually said he thought all Filipino women just wanted to stay home and have babies. I had to explain that I'm the primary breadwinner in our relationship, while my husband works part-time and handles more household responsibilities." Dr. Michelle Ong, gender studies professor at Ateneo de Manila University, underscores this point. The Philippines consistently ranks among the top countries for gender equality in education and professional opportunity. Filipino women have higher education completion rates than men and hold leadership positions throughout business, government, and civil society. The real-world consequences of these stereotypes are serious. Government data shows increased reports of relationship scams, exploitation, and human trafficking stemming from connections initiated through stereotype expectations. For well-intentioned foreigners, these misconceptions create different problems. They may misinterpret cultural signals, impose inappropriate expectations, or fail to recognize the unique qualities of the individual woman they're getting to know. Roberto Garcia, a relationship counselor specializing in intercultural couples, observes, "I've seen many promising relationships derailed because the foreign partner couldn't see past stereotypes to the actual person in front of them. They keep waiting for the woman to behave according to some fantasy rather than adapting to who she really is." Maria Santos, a university professor, adds, "These stereotypes create a no-win situation. If I'm assertive and independent, I'm not like other Filipinas. If I show care and consideration, I'm typically submissive. The reality is that I, like all women, contain multitudes. My culture influences me, but doesn't define every aspect of who I am." Moving past these harmful stereotypes requires cultural sensitivity and recognizing that Filipino culture contains internal diversity and is constantly evolving. Urban and rural experiences differ. Educational, religious, and family backgrounds create tremendously varied perspectives. Generations hold different views. Economic circumstances shape opportunities and outlooks. Dr. Polo Reyes, who researches cross-cultural relationships at De La Salle University, advises, "Approach each person as an individual first, shaped by culture but not defined by it. Be curious rather than presumptive. Ask questions rather than making assumptions, and most importantly, be willing to have your preconceptions challenged." This approach requires humility and openness. It means recognizing that cultural understanding is a journey, not a destination. Mistakes will happen, but what matters is the willingness to learn and adapt. The critical role of the mother. The journey to cultural understanding takes an unexpected turn when you discover who truly holds the keys to your relationship success in the Philippines. Would you believe that your Filipina girlfriend's mother might have more influence over your future together than any other person, including your partner herself? This maternal authority represents one of the most profound yet frequently overlooked aspects of Filipino relationship dynamics. While Filipino society appears patriarchal on the surface, a fascinating power structure operates beneath this veneer. The mother typically serves as the emotional center and practical administrator of the household, wielding significant authority over family matters, including their children's romantic relationships. Isabel Rojas, cultural anthropologist at the University of the Philippines, explains this dynamic. We call it maternal gatekeeping. The mother's influence extends far beyond traditional homemaking. She evaluates potential partners based on character, intentions, and compatibility with family values. This maternal influence manifests in ways that often surprise foreign partners. Daniel experienced this firsthand after dating his Filipina girlfriend for 6 months. I planned this perfect Boracay vacation and couldn't understand why she kept hesitating. She finally admitted her mother thought it was too soon for an overnight trip, he recalls. Daniel initially misinterpreted this as lack of independence, when it reflected the deep respect Filipinos have for maternal judgment in relationship progression. The historical roots of this matriarchal influence run deep in pre-colonial Filipino society, where women held equal or superior positions of authority as priestesses, property owners, and community leaders. Despite centuries of Spanish patriarchal influence, this foundation of female authority persisted, particularly within the domestic sphere. Today, in 68% of Filipino households, mothers control the family budget and make most purchasing decisions, regardless of who earns the income. The influence of Filipino mothers transcends financial considerations. Maria Gonzalez, relationship counselor in Manila, shares, Filipino mothers watch how you treat service staff, how you speak about your own family, and how you respond when plans change unexpectedly. They notice red flags that daughters miss because of romantic feelings. This evaluative role creates relationship dynamics unfamiliar to many foreigners. Jason, an American married to a Filipina for 8 years, recalls, I focused all my attention on my girlfriend during family dinners, barely acknowledging her mother. Later, my girlfriend told me, Mom thinks you're self-centered because you never helped clear the dishes. That small observation almost ended our relationship before it really began. The mother's assessment isn't about personal preference. She evaluates your potential as a long-term partner for her child and as an addition to the family unit through seemingly casual conversations that actually serve as informal interviews. Questions about your family, career aspirations, and life goals provide information she uses to determine your compatibility with family values. Gaining the approval of a Filipino mother requires understanding her priorities. Show genuine respect through actions, not just words. Simple gestures like helping with household tasks, arriving on time for family gatherings, and remembering important dates demonstrate reliability. Eduardo Mendez, cross-cultural relationship specialist, advises bring appropriate gifts when visiting, especially food items that can be shared with the family. These are symbolic expressions of respect, not bribes. Communication style matters tremendously. Direct disagreement or challenging her views, even when done politely by Western standards, can be perceived as disrespectful. Instead, practice respectful inquiry to understand her perspective before offering your own. When differences arise, frame your thoughts as complementary additions rather than contradictions. Understanding her protective instincts is equally important. Dr. Angelica Cruz, family psychologist, explains, Filipino mothers have traditionally been the emotional protectors of their children. What foreigners perceive as interference stems from deep concern about their child's emotional well-being. The implications of maternal approval become particularly evident during relationship milestones. Ramon, a relationship counselor specializing in Filipino foreign couples, shares, I worked with a German man who proposed without discussing his intentions with his girlfriend's mother. His fiancée eventually called off the engagement, telling him, I can't go against my mother's wishes. She's never wrong about people. Rather than explicitly forbidding relationships, disapproving mothers may express concerns to other family members, creating a consensus of caution that the daughter feels compelled to respect. This indirect influence can be particularly confusing foreigners accustomed to more straightforward communication. Successful relationships often involve strategic relationship building with mothers from the early stages. Investment advisor Michael shares, I regularly sought her mother's advice on Filipino customs and recipes. It showed I valued her knowledge and gave us opportunities to interact one-on-one. Those conversations built mutual respect long before I proposed. Finding common ground through shared interests offers another effective path to maternal approval. Robert, married to a Filipina for 12 years, discovered his mother-in-law loved detective shows. The Trugses programs together gave us something to discuss outside of my connection to her daughter. She'd say, you noticed that clue too. You're more observant than you look. Demonstrate your willingness to adapt to Filipino cultural practices, particularly those involving family, participating in family gatherings, learning basic phrases in her local dialect, and showing interest in family stories. Signal your commitment to becoming part of the family system rather than extracting her daughter from it. This maternal influence extends well beyond dating into marriage, with mothers continuing to provide guidance on marital challenges and childcare practices. As your relationship progresses, the mother's role typically evolves from gatekeeper to ally, provided you've established a foundation of mutual respect. This transformation occurs when she becomes confident that you value not just her daughter, but the family bonds that shape her identity. Through our journey exploring Filipino dating traditions, we've discovered a cultural approach to relationships built on foundations different from Western norms. Filipino relationships extend beyond the couple to embrace family networks where patience and sincerity trump convenience and commitment is viewed as truly lifelong. For those willing to embrace these traditions with genuine respect, the rewards are profound. You gain a partner and entry into a rich cultural tapestry where community strengthens bonds, generational wisdom guides choices, and harmony prevails over individualism. What aspects of these traditions might enrich your own approach to relationships?